Alright, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. Today I'm going to be looking at this Thursday night showdown slate between the Houston Texans and Miami Dolphins. We're going to check it out. We're going to look at all this. We're going to see who's the best captain, who's some value plays we can throw in there, which strategy we should go after to try and take down this Thursday night one-game slate. Before we get into all that, I just want to say thank you guys for the continued support on the channel. Subscribers, everything keeps going up. The likes on these videos started with literally zero like 2-3 weeks ago, and now I'm all the way around the 120 range on subscribers. We're getting some comments, people asking questions. So I love the interaction. I can see a community being built. If you guys can just continue that by liking this video right now, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already, or at the end of the video so you can see some value provided from the video before you subscribe. I understand that. Get active in the comments below. Let me know if you're thinking a different route for this strategy or this week in general for this Sunday's slate. We have a 10-game slate. You can check out the first game or the first look lineup that I did yesterday. I'll pin that up somewhere in here. But for right now, let's get into this Thursday night slate. So taking a first look at it, we can see Hopkins and Watson. Those would be the two guys that I would imagine to be the most expensive for that captain spot. Hopkins, I keep saying it, maybe Antonio Brown, but I think Hopkins is the best big game receiver. You put him on a night game, because I know Antonio Brown's road splits are a little bit different, but you put him on a night game. You saw that against Dallas a couple weeks back. He went off for, what did he go off for? 169 yards, 10 catches, and a touchdown. Oh no, that was Indy. Dallas, he went up for 151, so 151 on 9 catches, pretty similar stat line. 13 targets. This guy's just going to get the targets. Last 2 weeks have been a little bit different as Buffalo and Jacksonville both have great pressure. They've been able to get to Deshaun Watson, knock him on the ground a little bit. That's more so Watson not being able to get the ball out and get enough time to throw the ball downfield. Their line's been a little shaky, so that is concerning. Miami does have a decent pass rush, but nothing that compares to Jacksonville and the Bills in Buffalo. They have a better pass rush than Miami. So we can see here that Hopkins is obviously... he's a favorite play here. You want to throw him into cash game lineups, so you're gonna have to save immensely, $6,400 per player after that if you want to save up to try and get one of these guys. But here's the thing. We know that Tannehill is going to be out. We know that Albert Wilson's out and Kenny Stills is out. Devontae Parker's questionable. They said the quote that he's got to play because we don't have any other receivers. I don't think he's got to play. We're going to see if he's healthy or not. Danny Amendola looks good. And then after that, there's not much at talent, at least. I mean, you have Frank Gore and you have Kenyon Drake splitting carries. That's not too much potential. I would say Kenyon Drake for tournaments is more so the play, probably even cash as well. Gore has been sneaky getting carries in there. But that's just looking at Miami really quick. I know that we have another receiver for Miami. I can't think of his name. Jeremy Grant, yeah. So Jakeem Grant. So it's another receiver that you have. He can go into the starting role. Parker's not there. Could be an interesting play at a cheap price. And then you look, Kiki's going to be out this week, so you have Will Fuller, Hopkins, Lamar Miller, and then you're looking at Deshaun Watson. So there's really 4 big players on that side. On the other side, if you want to play somebody like Osweiler, who has been pretty solid in his first 2 weeks. Last week got the interceptions down, didn't have as much yardage, but he wasn't playing from behind. Didn't have as much touchdowns, but again, that's just the way that the game flow went for that game. So very interesting that he didn't have any touchdowns playing from behind or interceptions playing from behind. He's taking care of the ball better. Maybe he's a different quarterback now. But now he's going on the road on a short week to Houston, who has a very good pass rush. Maybe not as great of a secondary, but a short week on the road for a guy who has only had 2 starts this year, 2 starts in a while, can be difficult, especially with the pass rush with J.J. Watt, Jadavion Clowney. So not somebody I want to do in cash, not somebody I really want to play at all. I have a Monday to Thursday slate that I actually have 2-game slate, a 12-man tournament for a $500 Fantasy Football World Championship qualifier. This just reminds me, because I came in 5th. Right now I'm in 5th with this Thursday night slate coming. I'm the only guy with 5 players left. Some people have 3 players. The only people in front of me have 3 players. Some people behind me have 4. So I can only move up, basically. I was the only one who played Eli. Eli outscored Matt Ryan by like 1.5 points, so that was huge. If Eli gets it on one of those QB sneaks last night, I'm basically locked up. Because I didn't have Odell, he threw it to Odell, so it kind of balanced out. But if it's to anybody else, I get points, Odell doesn't. So that's definitely interesting. But I have Thursday night, not to go off on a tangent, I have like 5 players in this game, so this is something that I'm definitely invested in already. So I have seen, not the 1-game slate, but I have seen like their lineups and prices, but it's obviously different for this tournament slate, just to get that out there. So let's try and build a lineup here. Lamar Miller I love against Miami. We saw Kerryon Johnson did to them last week. He had 22 out of 30 carries in their last game with Alfred Brooks creeping around there, but it's obviously Lamar Miller's backfield based on that workload that he's been getting. He had 22 carries, finally got over 100 yards for the first time in a while. And if he can get some catches, then he's going to be very viable. But for a 1-game slate going forward on Sundays, but for a 1-game slate, he's, I think, pretty safe if we want to go tournament-wise. If we're not going tournament-wise, it's these 3 guys right here that I'm throwing in. Fuller, I could see with Cootie being out. He's at 8, 8, and 9 target, or 9, 9, and 8 targets in the 3 games without Kute this year. So Fuller's definitely a sneaky guy to go off of Hopkins. Let's throw him in there and see what we can do just to get some savings. You're going to be saving $2,000 and possibly almost $3,000 if you're going off of Hopkins with Fuller. So let's see if we can get Hopkins and maybe Fuller in there, or Watson. I think this is a game you want to get Watson in. He's due for a bounce back. Like I said, the last 2 weeks haven't been great for him. Lowest passing yardage that we've seen out of him in a while. Lowest attempts that we've seen out of him in a while. And part of that is just the game flow, the way that it's been, running the ball a little bit more with Lamar Miller, with Alfred Blue. But part of it is, and that's because of these pass rushes that they're facing. That's the other part of it, is the pass rushes that they're facing are getting pressure on him, forcing them to have 2nd down and longs, 3rd down and longs, hitting him, dropping him back. Maybe he's a little bit timid in there. This week he should have a lot more time in the pocket, or at least maybe get some rushing yards in there, get out of the pocket a little bit. That's been limited these last 2 weeks. Basically, everything's down for him. This is not Deshaun Watson. This is not how he will be his whole season. He's going to be more like these first 5 weeks where he's guaranteed of 25 points for you. So we can see that he's going to regress positively. So for a 1-game slate and moving forward, I like Deshaun Watson. So let's plug him in there. Say this is if we're just going to fade Hopkins for some reason. And that reason basically is to save money. So now you have 57, 55, and this isn't bad. I doubt there's any way we can get all 3 in there at 3,700. You'd have to go kickers. I want to find Amendola at 6,800. He's been playing great with Osweiler in the lineup. 11 targets, 7 targets. Got his first touchdown. Getting the targets. He's catching them. He has a low A-dot, which is good for a small receiver. You want to see low A-dot, higher percentage on your targets. That's good. If you're a big body receivers, it's okay. If you don't have as high of a percentage of a catch percentage, because you're getting probably a wider A-dot. So A-dot is just average depth of target. So if you're a big body receiver, that means you're stretching the field. So you only have to catch a couple of those for it to actually mean something. If you're a smaller body, quick slot wide receiver like Danny Amendola is, maybe like somebody like a Jarvis Landry, like a Kiki Kute, you want to get a lot of targets, and you want to catch those targets, because chances are you're not going to break one off to the house, and chances are they are low A-dot, and if they are, you just you're going to have like 5 to 10 yard passes coming your way. That's different than a 60-yard pass to somebody like John Brown, or a bigger body receiver like Josh Gordon, who can make it all up in one catch. So low A-dot, you want to see high completion percentage on their targets. That's happening right here, 6 out of 7, 8 out of 11. That's honestly great. Danny Amendola is somebody that I want to play, somebody that I have in that Monday to Thursday split, along with Hopkins, and then the Texans D, Lamar Miller, and somebody else. Mike Gesicki's in there. I faded at Ingram and Hooper, which actually worked out as long as Gesicki can get some catches. And now it's somebody that I'm going to look at cheap here. So Gesicki's at 2,400. And basically, I mean, Austin Derby's probably going to continue to be out here. These are the tight ends. They have a ton of them there. Did not practice Monday. He's been dealing with a foot injury. You also have Nick O'Leary here, who does catch the ball a decent amount, but Gesicki's definitely the more athletic, the guy that they're going to look to more. It seems like Osweiler's starting to look his way, especially after last week. I think he posted his biggest yardage receiving of the day. He had his longest catch of the season as well. Penn State product. He's definitely athletic. He can make ridiculous catches. I've seen here first person with the Penn State logo. You can see that. But Mike Gesicki, somebody in tournament you want to take a flyer on. In cash, I can see him having 4 or 5 targets, catching again 3 balls for 40 yards minimum. And if he gets his butt in the end zone, you're going to be setting yourself apart. I don't think a lot of guys are going to be playing Gesicki this week. So I don't like him a lot for cash. But if you want to try and get these 2 guys in right here, I think he makes sense. All right, so now you have $69.50 to play with. Do we want to go down to the Osweiler mobile? I'm not sure that we do. We have 2 guys on the Dolphins. I think we want to limit it to that if we can. I think the Texans D is a decent play here at 4,600. Like I said, Osweiler on a short week on the road. He doesn't have 2 of his top wide receiver weapons, if you want to call Albert Wilson. He's been having a great year. Kenny Stills has been pretty solid as well. He doesn't have either of them. He might not have Devontae Parker. I think that the Texans D is a smart move here. If anything, they can get pressure. And the biggest correlation between defensive points and pressure and defense fantasy points and like which defense to play, the biggest correlation that we've seen when studying it is just pressure. Can you force pressure? And there's tons of reasons why it makes sense. You're going to make the quarterback throw up some more ducks, maybe some picks. You're going to hit him more, so maybe you hit him and he fumbles it and you return that. Or just in general, sacks. Sacks of points, that's 1 point. And the pressure just leads to other things. If a quarterback has a clean pocket, there's a less chance that he's going to fumble the ball, right, from a strip sack or something like that. It's just not going to happen. And there's less chance that he's going to throw an interception unless he just completely misreads something or doesn't see somebody. It's pressure, and that's what the Texans can do. They can get pressure on the quarterback. As you can see here, they've had 2 sacks literally every week except once. They've had 4 sacks multiple times. I like them on a short week against a decent Miami offensive line. Nothing spectacular, though. Definitely something that J.J. Watt, who's having a great year quietly, so is his brother T.J., him and Clowney have just been having decent years. They can get pressure on this offensive line. So I'm going to put the Texans in there, and then that gives you 9,300. And unfortunately, on this slate, 9,300 is going to cause you to lose money. So if you plug somebody in like Lamar Miller here, you're going to end up losing money because you can't get up to Hopkins. Now let's see. Say you just want to fade. Say you want to get Hopkins in this lineup here. So at 4,100, you can do that. So you can get Hopkins in this lineup. And the over-under, so keeping this in mind, the over-under for this game is 44.5 points. So that means that there's an implied total around what? Cut that in half, divided by 2, 24, whatever the math is right now. I think it's around like, what, 23 points with the spread, the way that it is for this game. I think it's maybe 25 points, somewhere in there for these Houston Texans for their offense. So maybe starting 2 of their top wide receivers with their quarterback. Maybe it's not the smartest thing to do because there's not going to be a ton of points scored in this game. They are the favorite, so that's somewhere that I like to see Lamar Miller in this lineup. So I'm not going to try and force Hopkins and Fuller in the lineup. Fuller gives us that money savings, but maybe we don't need that money savings. So let's see if we do Hopkins here at 5,800. Who can we get in this lineup? If Kiki was there, I'd probably just plug him in. But you can see the huge drop-off here. So these guys are injured, so they're basically pointless to us. And then you have all the backups right here. So it starts at 6,600 and then all the way down to basically 3,800. That's a huge drop-off. That's $3,000 in drop-off because of some injuries in here, of course, these 3. But all the backup quarterbacks, when Baker was playing and he came in at halftime, people who had him did great. They just took a flyer saying maybe Baker will come in, maybe they'll pull Taylor, which is what they did. I mean, he got hurt, but they pulled Tyrod that week. So now they've priced them all up, and you can see this huge gap here. I mean, I don't hate Devontae Parker, but I saw a tweet that said he's basically that old Miller Lite cannon in the back of your fridge that you kind of push aside the broccoli salad to get to one last night. You don't know how long he's been there. As basically Devontae Parker, been pretty much a bust. That wide receiver class, for the most part, has been pretty much a bust. I mean, Amari Cooper just got traded. I think he's great. I don't think he's a bust at all. But we see some guys in there. I think Laquan Treadwell was in there. So I think if you're going to go wide receiver, Danny Amendola is the way to go, if not Jakeem Grant. But I see that Amendola has a connection right now to Brock Osweiler. I would love to fit Amendola in this lineup and call it a day. I think that would be an incredible lineup if you get Hopkins in there because, like I said, I think he's the biggest big game or just night game, primetime game wide receiver. He comes out when the lights are on. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to fit him, but if we do go Fuller, we can fit Amendola. I'm going to fade Drake. I like him from a playing behind role with some snaps. I'm going to fade their running backs in this situation. I don't like the matchup going up against the Texans D-line. I want to play Miller, and the reason I want to play Miller, one, he's at home on a short week, so he doesn't have to travel. That's great for running backs. And I think they're 6 or 7 point favorites. When you have a big home favorite and he's a decent, capable running back, got 100 yards last week, so we know that that's the case, and he's getting 20 touches a game, 15 to 20 touches a game for Lamar Miller. It means that they're going to eat up that clock probably in the fourth quarter more times than not. We see correlation between big home running backs that are favorites and fantasy points. It basically means they're probably going to get an extra 5 touches a game. Maybe that's an extra touchdown a game. We don't know, but I like those odds better than playing one of the running backs on the other side of the ball or taking a flyer on somebody else. So we're taking a flyer on Gesicki here. 2,400 on Gesicki. If you didn't want that, you can come up to Grant, which I don't think is an awful play. If Devontae Parker's out, maybe you just take the flyer on Grant, saying that he's going to get more targets and yardage than Gesicki. At this point, it's basically who's going to score the touchdown, right? Because Grant, I mean, I know he's had a couple of good weeks. He's a special teams player too, so there's the opportunity for him to take one back for you. But basically, ever since his couple of big games to start the year, targets-wise, catches-wise, he's just fallen off, and it doesn't seem like Osweiler is looking his way. Part of that is because he's the 4th wide receiver now out there, and when Devontae Parker comes back, he's basically 4th or 5th, and he's a special teams player. If all those guys are out, Grant can be an interesting option. But at this point down here, I'm probably going, and this is a guy that I want to touch on, Griffin. What's he doing? He didn't practice Monday, was inactive last week. He's at 3K. This is an interesting spot too because he's definitely getting the targets when he's in the games. But maybe somebody to monitor and see later in the week. But I was just going to be looking for the kickers here. We can't even afford, oh no, we have to take Grant out of this lineup. If this is cash lineup, maybe you just go with the kicker here. Like I said, they're the bigger favorites. They're going to score more points. That gets your kicker. Maybe he can get you around 10 points. That's pretty solid. I think his 10 points is more likely to be is to be safer than somebody like Gesicki getting you 10 points or Grant getting you 10 points. But again, if those guys score a touchdown, that all goes out the window because even if it's a 1-yard touchdown, they're getting you 7.1 points right there due to the DraftKings PPR. And then all they have to do is catch, another ball to kind of outscore a good game from a kicker. So that's the risk that you're doing there. In cash, I like this cash game build here. You have $700 left to spend. I don't think I want to spend that. Really, there's no way that we can spend that unless you wanted to come up to Hopkins from Watson, which isn't an awful idea. You can do that. You can play around with this the way you want. I didn't really look at anything too deep value-wise, like a punt play down here. Ellington's on IR, nothing there. Foreman's going to be out. I think Foreman's going to be a great running back once he can actually get on the field and play. Blue is definitely going to be getting probably somewhere between 5 and 10 touches this game. I think it's going to be closer to 5. I think this 8 is just because they were up so big against Jacksonville, so they were just trying to eat out that clock, give Lamar Miller some breaks in there. Sammy Coates, no. Derby, monitor Derby and monitor Ryan Griffin for the week. If those tight ends are coming in, then obviously I don't like Gesicki as much, and I like Ryan Griffin a little bit more at his value price. But that's the way that I'm seeing this shake up. I don't think there's anybody too much at value. If you want to take a floater on somebody like Parker or Grant, I'm going to stay away from Gore and Drake. Like I said, Drake I like more so than Gore if you wanted to put him in a captain spot. I think the captain spots are going to be pretty straightforward this week. I think it's going to be Hopkins, and I think it's going to be Watson, and people are just going to fit them in. Some people are going to play Osweiler because they're going to think that that's a sharp move. It might be a sharp move just contrarian-wise in tournaments, but I don't think he's going to be getting as many points as he has these past 2 weeks. Definitely not 31. Probably not even 18. I see him closer to the 15-point ceiling for him this week. I mean, maybe 20 as a total ceiling, but probably closer to that 10 to 15-point range just because he doesn't have the weapons. He's Brock Osweiler going on the road, yada, yada, yada. So that's the way that I'm seeing this shake up. With so many injuries, we can see these 3 guys right here injured. So many injuries, there's not a lot of plays this week, and there's not a lot of value down here. So keep an eye on those tight ends, both for Miami, both for Houston. And then at that point, it's just who do you want to throw into the captain spot. I prefer Willer or Hopkins because I believe one of them is going to get in the end zone, if not both of them. Or I could see Fuller. With no Kiki, I think Fuller's a better option, somebody you want to have in your lineups. I don't like fading Hopkins completely, so this build does make sense to me. But at the same time, do you want to fade the quarterback in that situation? You can't afford to have all 3 in. Quickly, I'll try and just jam them all in to see if you could do that with kickers or something. Let's say Texans defense. You probably can do it if you just go kickers, but let's see. Then you have 3,100. You can't even afford it, but you can go somebody like Griffin. At this point, I don't like having all Texans players, so maybe Jakeem Grant does start. You can go Grant here, and then you can go Gesicki or something like that. So you can jam them all in. This might actually be a better option here. I like Texans defense a lot. They're pretty expensive based on some of these other position players, but I think they're worth it at that price. They get the pressure, and like we said, that leads to fantasy points. And if Devontae Parker's out, Grant. If Devontae Parker's in, maybe you just go Devontae Parker in this situation instead. So you can jam them all in. It's actually relatively easy because of the gaps in positions. You have the cheap guys here in this $2,400 to $4,000 range. There's about 3 guys you could choose from, maybe 4 if these tight ends are healthy. And then you come up and you just squeeze all these guys in. The only way you could do this is if you put Fuller in the captain spot, I believe, because then you'll have too much money if you try and put Hopkins or Watson, or too little money left. So this is the way that I'm seeing it. We'll just finish it off, throw Devontae Parker in there if he does start, if that's something you want to take a flyer on. I don't mind this lineup at all. I could see each of these wide receivers catching probably 8 balls if there's no Kute there. At least 8 balls, 50-plus yards for each of them. So that's definitely interesting. And one of them is going to catch a touchdown this game, unless there's just no touchdowns at all. And if not, then Watson's probably running them in. So you have all their production right there. The only thing that does scare me is not having somebody like Lamar Miller in this lineup. Like I said, a huge running back, but that's just the way that you have to play with it. I'm probably going to have Miller in there, maybe even in the captain spot, as he is a huge home running back and to get more touches. This is it for this Sunday slate. This Thursday's quick slate. I did my first look on the other day. I'm going to come back Thursday or Friday and try and get those value picks up to you guys. Just basically guys that I see are either underpriced at the stud position or guys based on what's happening in the week, injuries to look out for, try and get in your lineups as a value play. You can check out that first look lineup. I'll pin it up here at the end of the video on the end screen. But I appreciate you. I appreciate you guys watching this right now. If this is the first time you're watching me, go ahead, smash that like button. If it's not the first time you're watching me, go ahead, smash that like button. Just smash the like button. It helps the video be seen by more people, basically. The more interaction we have on these videos, likes, comments, subscribers off the video, it basically bumps the video up, and the more time that you guys watch it on YouTube, it's called watch time, retention time. If you stay through the video, they like that, they bump the video up, so more people get to see it in the news feed. We can kind of build this community here. I kind of got the idea to do some of this stuff from Al Seinfeld, I believe it's pronounced, Al Smizzle. So if you're somebody who watches him and you think that I have some of the potential, or whatever you want to call it, and you think that these videos are good, leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about them. Go check out Al's channel. It's great information. He gets a lot of videos out a week. He's doing NBA, something that I want to get into. But this is the Thursday night slate. I'd appreciate if you guys can hit that like button, comment anything down below, any questions on this, anything for the Sunday slate, and go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Sal. Take care, everybody. Enjoy this Thursday night slate, and I'll be back later in the week. Peace.